While the whole world is preoccupied with the tension in the Middle East, there's a quiet scene unfolding behind the scenes. Iran's foreign minister suddenly went to China to seek support. And what's surprising is that Beijing seems ready to help, even though they themselves are affected by the crisis. In recent years, it is estimated that 40 to 50% of China's imported oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. But now that's a big problem because of the turmoil directly connected to Iran. So for many, it seems impossible that China would still help the Iranian regime. But the opposite is happening. It all started after the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned a major refinery in China called Hengji Petrochemical Refinery. This isn't just a small company, it's one of the biggest refineries in the entire country. Every day, it can process around 400,000 barrels of oil. With the scale of its operations, it's now the second largest independent refinery in China. In the last week of April, it was officially sanctioned by the United States.
Washington has officially sanctioned Hengli Petrochemical, one of China's largest refineries. It has a processing capacity of roughly 400,000 barrels of crude oil per day.
And according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, they are increasing the pressure against Iran and the countries that support it. According to Bessent, they are already coordinating with their allied countries in the Gulf region. Because those countries have also been experiencing attacks for a long time, they are ready to share information about the bank accounts of members of the Iranian regime. He added that they are also talking to different banks, including Chinese banks, to remind them that buying Iranian goods is prohibited. And if anyone uses US dollars for this, they could possibly be hit by sanctions. Not only that, he also warned about what are called secondary sanctions. This means that even if you're not directly connected to Iran, you can still be penalized if you help with their business. But this is where things became more dramatic. Instead of backing down, China retaliated in a way they rarely do. They issued an injunction that almost completely prohibits companies within China from complying with American sanctions. In other words, Beijing said it is illegal for their companies to simply follow the orders of the U.S. And this is where many international companies got stuck, because now they have to follow two different laws. If they follow the U.S. sanctions, they might violate China's law. But if they disobey the U.S. sanctions, they could be punished by the U.S. It's like a business caught between two giant countries. What's even more surprising is that this isn't something China usually does. It's true there have been Chinese companies and banks that were sanctioned before for trading with Iran. But in the past, Beijing didn't respond aggressively. It's only now that they're really fighting back seriously. And there's a big reason, so this is why. This refinery is very important for China's economy. Aside from its large production, it's also crucial for the oil supply in neighboring regions. If this stops, many industries could be affected. So for China, this isn't just about Iran. It's also a matter of their own economy and energy security. On the American side, it's still unclear what their actual response will be. Up to now, the Treasury Department hasn't made a direct statement on how they will deal with what China did. But the U.S. has previously said that any company violating their sanctions could be hit with secondary sanctions. The problem is they said that before China issued the injunction. So now, many analysts are asking if Washington is really ready to clash with Beijing at such a sensitive time, especially since there's another major development coming. According to reports, Biden is scheduled to visit China to meet with Xi Jinping on May 15. That's coming up soon, and it seems like America doesn't want to create a bigger diplomatic conflict before the meeting. Yesterday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a press conference. He was asked about this issue, but he also didn't give a direct answer about what action the Treasury Department would take. Nevertheless, he mentioned some important details that show how serious this is. At this point, it's clear that this is not just a simple issue of oil or sanctions. This is gradually becoming a power struggle between America and China. And in the midst of the tension, Iran is using the opportunity to look for stronger allies. The question now is, how far is China willing to go to protect Iran? And how far is America willing to go to stop it? Because if both superpowers back down, the situation could possibly remain under control. But if neither side wants to back down, this tension could escalate even further in the coming weeks. After intense pressure from America, the situation became even more heated when Marco Rubio spoke about possible sanctions against countries that do not comply with U.S. sanctions.
I'll refer you to Treasury for that. We have options, and if you ignore our sanctions, you'll face secondary sanctions. And I don't have an announcement for you on that today, but we don't do these things for symbolic purposes.
But his tone became more intense when Iran and the Strait of Hormuz were discussed. According to Rubio,
on the first point about the visit, it's fine. I hope the Chinese tell him what he needs to be told, and that is that what you are doing in the Straits is causing you to be globally isolated.
He added that Iran should not be blowing up ships, they should not be placing mines in the sea, and most of all, they should not be holding the entire global economy hostage. And this is where he pointed out why this is also important for China. According to Rubio, China has an export-driven economy. This means that a large part of their economy depends on selling products to other countries. But how can China export if ships can't pass through smoothly? How can other countries buy if the global economy is collapsing because of the tension in the Straits of Hormuz? In other words, even though China is an ally of Iran, they are also affected by what's happening. According to Rubio, it's also in China's interest for Iran to be prevented from closing the Straits of Hormuz because Beijing would also be one of the most affected by this. But while the discussions are heating up in Washington, a major development quietly took place in Beijing. Last night, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi visited China. This is his first visit there since the war began, so many observers are closely watching this meeting, especially since China is Iran's biggest economic backer and buys almost 98% of its oil exports. Because of this, many analysts believe that Beijing's support is crucial for keeping Iran's economy alive. That's why many are now asking what Iran's real intentions are. Some believe that Iran is asking for additional economic support, while others think they might need military or diplomatic backing as pressure from the United States intensifies. But while this visit was being discussed, President Trump suddenly released a statement that surprised many. According to Trump, the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz will remain, but Project Freedom will be temporarily halted to allow time, so that a possible agreement can be finalized and signed. This caused even more confusion among many observers, because just a few days before this, American officials repeatedly said that Project Freedom was a humanitarian mission to help ships stranded in the Persian Gulf due to the tension in the Strait of Hormuz. And we're not talking about a small operation here. It's estimated that around 2,000 ships have been unable to leave the Persian Gulf for several months. They've been saying it's been over 2 months now. And along with those ships are about 20,000 sailors who have been stranded at sea for a long time while waiting for the route to become safe again. So when Trump said that the movement operation would be temporarily halted, many analysts were surprised. Are there really secret negotiations happening behind the scenes? Is a new agreement being formed between America, Iran, and China? Or maybe everyone is just trying to prevent something bigger?
Bago pa tuluyang sumabog ang...
For now, there is still no clear answer. But one thing is definitely clear. As this crisis drags on, more countries are getting involved in the escalating tension. And as the pressure on Iran increases, it seems they are clinging even more to China to keep their economy and government alive. The question now is, how long can China balance its own interests while protecting Iran? And if the negotiations continue to fail, what will happen next to one of the most important shipping routes in the world? As the tension in the Strait of Hormuz drags on, the situation becomes more desperate for the thousands of people trapped at sea. According to reports, the ships that have been stranded in the Persian Gulf for several months are slowly running out of supplies. It's not just fuel that's the problem. Food, medicine, and other basic necessities needed to survive at sea are also starting to run out. Because of this, the United States launched what they call a humanitarian mission, Project Freedom, to help the ships stranded in the Persian Gulf due to the tension in the Strait of Hormuz. In a press conference, President Trump said that even though the United States is targeting Iran, China has still remained relatively friendly to the U.S. while the crisis continues. According to Trump, it's also possible that Xi Jinping could help calm the situation. He added that China knows how big the impact of the conflict in the Strait of Hormuz is because a large part of their oil supply passes through that route. Trump also said that China has been respectful and that Beijing is not directly challenging them, even though the situation is sensitive. And for Trump, that's a big deal. But while Trump is making it seem like an agreement is close, a different tone is coming from other American officials. This is where the whole picture became even more confusing. Because while Trump is saying that a deal with Iran might be close to being signed, Marco Rubio is saying that it's not even clear yet who really has control in Iran. According to Rubio, there are different factions running things inside the Iranian government. In other words, even if America is talking to someone, Washington isn't sure if that's really the group that has the true power to fulfill any agreement. And there was a recent incident that further proved this. The other day, the IRGC attacked the UAE. But after that, it was the Iranian president himself who got angry and said that they did not support that attack. This shows that there are groups vying for influence within Iran. Some want to make deals. And there are also those who seem to want to continue aggressive actions against their enemies. So while Trump is optimistic that an agreement is near, Rubio is more cautious. In an interview, he was directly asked if they see any serious signs that Iran is ready to give up its nuclear weapons program. And, according to Rubio, Iran has long been saying that they do not want to have nuclear weapons. But for America, what they are saying does not match what they are doing. According to Rubio, if you really have no plans to make a nuclear weapon, why would you develop long-range missiles that can reach a large part of Europe? Why would you build large underground facilities for uranium enrichment? And why would you hide the operations inside mountains, caves, and secret facilities? For Rubio, that's exactly the reason why America doesn't trust Iran. In America's eyes, many of Iran's actions resemble those of a country that wants to have nuclear weapons. So while negotiations between the U.S., Iran, and China continue, Washington's doubts about Tehran's true intentions are growing even more. According to Marco Rubio, Iran's nuclear program has had a secret component for a long time. They reportedly still possess highly enriched uranium that has reached 60% enrichment, something that, according to the U.S., has no civilian use and could possibly be connected to the production of nuclear weapons. He added that if Iran was really only after civilian nuclear energy, they could import enriched materials like other countries do, instead of building secret underground facilities. While the U.S. is trying to find a diplomatic solution, Iranian media is portraying it as if the U.S. has backed down and Iran is winning in the ongoing tension. At the same time, the situation in the Strait of Hormuz is also heating up. According to Jenner, since the ceasefire was announced, Iran has attacked commercial vessels 9 times, seized 2 container ships, and attacked U.S. forces more than 10 times. At present, more than 22,500 mariners aboard more than 1,550 commercial vessels are still stranded in the Arabian Gulf. It was also reported that Iran attacked Oman and the United Arab Emirates. The attempted attack on the Fujairah oil terminal using drones, cruise missiles, and small boats was also included. And amid the crisis, Iran reportedly introduced a new system for ships wanting to cross the Strait of Hormuz, where they are said to charge around $2 million per tanker to pass through. While there is still no clear agreement from the meeting between the Iranian foreign minister and China, the whole world is watching closely, waiting to see whether a diplomatic deal will be reached or if tensions in the region will continue to escalate.